Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. It's Tuesday, June 25th. I don't know why I did that hand thing. If we had an actual video for our YouTube channel, they would have seen me wave my hand.
Yeah, you almost just smacked me in the face if you had longer arms.
Yeah. I'm not Giannis Antetokounmpo, Rick. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon right across from me.
What's up?
Today is the Commissioner's episode. We'll do this once a year because it's also probably going to be our most boring show of all time. But no, some people might find this very intriguing. The Commissioners.
Yeah. Or if you're trying to start a league.
Yeah, that's true. Wait, you gonna say something, boss?
I would say, well, no. You're calling it our most boring show ever.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not giving it high ratings myself.
I think we need to let this play out. Then we can decide if you're boring.
It could be the dopest show ever.
Yeah, you don't know that.
It could be our best show. Forget about the ranking shows. This is the one you want to listen to.
Yeah, let's get started, bro.
Yeah, let's do it. Before we get into the news, make sure you go over to Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Champs. Go to Instagram at the Fantasy Champions and follow us over there. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/the Fantasy Champions. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. When you're on YouTube, make sure you click the bell for notifications. Leave a comment, do all that fun stuff, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, because that would be awesome. Let's get into the news. So Dante Pettis. Lots of Dante Pettis information flying out lately.
That's how you know it's still July.
Yeah, it's true. Dante Pettis is projected by The Athletic. Some writer from The Athletic projected Dante Pettis to be the number one wide receiver on the 49ers depth chart.
Oh, boy.
With Deebo Samuel being number 2, which means Marquise Goodwin could be the third wide receiver.
What happened to him?
In San Francisco. Well, he sucked. So that's what happened to him.
Wow, that's putting it one way.
I'm excited to see Dante Pettis excel as a wide receiver for one this year. I love Dante Pettis. He's like my favorite player.
Oh, yeah?
I shouldn't say that.
He's like, I was going to say, he seems kind of just like an average guy.
I'm going to get obsessed with him.
I want to because
he's a first round pick 2 years ago, or last year, I think.
I want the 49ers to
succeed.
Yes. Well, not really. I actually could care less what the 49ers do.
Are you kidding me? You love Jimmy Garoppolo.
No, I could absolutely care less about the 49ers. But as long as Jimmy Garoppolo wins MVP and throws 85 touchdowns, then I'm fine with that.
Dolphins wide receiver Albert Wilson could miss training camp. I don't remember what his injury was. I believe it was a torn Achilles last year.
I was just going to say Achilles.
Something bad. But he will not be back for training camp. This doesn't really hurt anyone fantasy wise.
Are you kidding me? He was going in the first round in my draft last night.
If that happened, that'd be ridiculous.
There's like one guy who's like a random Dolphins fan that just takes all Dolphins players.
Oh my god!
I love playing fantasy with people like that.
Our draft tip show is on Thursday. Maybe we should throw in there, if you're a new player, don't draft all the players from your team.
No, dude, that's just
a
your
rule.
rule.
That's something that you should know already going into this.
Dude,
I put $100 on this league and I drafted all Patriots.
If you're a Dolphins fan, I think you should draft all Dolphins players.
Yeah, let's go. If you're in my league, definitely. If you're a Dolphins fan, go for it.
Yeah, man, live your dreams. Be the GM of your favorite team.
So Tyreek Cohen said he doesn't expect his role to change this year, which is kind of interesting. Now, I want to let you know I'm starting to do a 180 on Mr. Cohen.
Oh.
And I don't know why. It's because it's the off season. I got nothing better
swings.
to do. Yeah,
my off season.
My off season mood swings, take swings, we should say.
Because there's no football, so you're just thinking about.
At least we're not talking about Idaho Smith today.
Dang, dude, I wanted to.
He's like,
that's my guy.
I wanted that guy. So Cohen, I think if he keeps the same role, he'll probably be an RB2, mid-range. Most likely. That would be probably where I'd put him. Because he did overperform a little bit last year. So I still think he's going to be an RB2. But the thing that I flipped on is that I was looking at some stats I should probably start tweeting this crap out. But I was looking at some stats, and the first year that Tyreek Christian McCaffrey came into the league, Christian McCaffrey had 400 yards, 440 yards or something like that on 100 attempts, around that range, and 700 yards on like 80 catches or something like that. So he didn't have like this spectacular season, but it was an RB2. It was good enough to get there. And then last year, we all know what happened. Christian McCaffrey became like the third best running back in fantasy football. Last year, Tyreek Cohen had 440 rushing yards and around 700 to 800 receiving yards with, what was it? I think it was on 100 rushes and like 75 to 80 catches.
Are you telling me that Tyreek Cohen is Christian McCaffrey?
I'm telling you, there's parallels. There's also, both of them averaged 1 fantasy point per opportunity. So if you increased Tyreek Cohen's role by just 80 touches, he would jump into RB1 status. Now, the thing I have tempered myself on many times is the fact that they have Mike Davis and David Montgomery. So he's probably not going to get those snaps, so I don't expect anything from Tyreek Cohen. But in the 8th round, I don't know. Maybe worth
if he keeps falling,
a draft pick.
I don't know. I think he's going a little earlier than the 8th round. But one problem with him, what were you saying, getting more opportunity?
Yeah, that's his one problem.
Yeah, well, it's kind of hard to do that when you're 5'6" and
that's true.
Running back.
Well, I don't think he could ever exceed 170 carries.
There would be a limit.
He doesn't need to do that in order to become a low end RB1, especially this year. But he's never going to be Christian McCaffrey. When I drew that parallel, it was like, he's not going to be Christian McCaffrey. We know that.
Oh wait, this is 12 team. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, and I cut you off as well. So, you know how it is. So he's currently going in the 6th round, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that according to the fantasy football calculator?
Yeah. Oh, that's non-PPR. Half PPR, he's still going in the 6th round.
A 12 team or a 10 team?
10 team.
Oh, wow. I saw him on another one going in the 7th round, so.
I mean, he could be. He's one of those guys, though, that could fall to like the 8th or 9th round.
Yeah. I think as we get closer to the season, that might happen, but then it also
especially with the hype,
go against that. But anyway, I wanted to throw that in to let you know that I don't hate Tyreek Cohen anymore. But it just leads me to love David Montgomery more, because if Montgomery is even a slightly more efficient version of what Jordan Howard was, which is like 4.2 yards a carry and 5 yards per touch.
Right.
He could definitely be, if he can get 0.8 something fantasy points per opportunity, he's a guy that is going to get 250 touches like next year if he wins the job. But Tyreek Cohen, I don't know. But I think at worst, if you draft him in the 7th or 8th round, at worst he's like an RB2. So he's not going to hurt you.
I think
at that point.
I've been saying that for a while.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah. Sorry, took me a little while to jump on board. Giants wide receiver Corey Coleman is projected to be the number 3 wide receiver on the depth chart. I know everyone's trying to figure out which wide receiver to take for the Giants.
Yeah, Corey Coleman's the guy.
It'll probably be my guy. Well, the guy I'm looking at is Sterling Shepard. I know everyone wants to go out and get Golden Tate, but when has Golden Tate ever shown anyone that he can be decent?
Well, he's always been a decent receiver. That's his problem.
Yep.
He's a decent receiver. He's not
like a guy that good wide receiver too.
And it also doesn't help that Eli Manning is now his quarterback. I think every Giants fan probably hates me so much.
No, they hate Eli too. But Corey Coleman could sneak into if he wins the 3rd spot, he could be one of those 3rd-year breakouts that turns into a wide receiver too.
He did get cut by the Browns and Patriots.
You're getting so far into the hatred of Eli Manning that you're not even giving him like any credit whatsoever.
I didn't.
It's not that bad. He's like, oh, good God, man.
First of all, I just brought up Corey Coleman. You were the one that just said Eli Manning.
That's true.
So don't be coming at me.
According to head coach Dan Quinn, Devonta Freeman has, quote, looked like himself this offseason.
Well, that's good. I hope he looks like himself and not a different person.
Yep. I'm staying away from him because of injuries, but that's me.
No, I'm staying away from him because our boy Idaho Smith.
Let's go, Idaho. Colts head coach Frank Reich said he's impressed with Devin Funchess. That's a great sign for average fantasy growth. If you want to draft a guy that's never going to start, draft Devin Funchess.
Poor guy.
It's true. Sony Michel, after his knee cleanup, Mike Giardi, who is a reporter for NFL Network, he covers the Patriots full time, I believe, is reporting that he's been running at, quote, full tilt. If you follow Mike Giardi on Twitter, you will get all of the videos of Patriots training camp and stuff. He's always out there recording stuff. So
Everything?
Everything.
Does that include Bill Belichick turning up?
Yeah. Well, you only get that once a year.
At the parade.
This is an interesting little storyline. Amari Cooper set 2,000 receiving yards as his goal this year. Frick me.
He did
No
now?
receiver
What did
has
he do?
ever gotten to 2,000 yards, and he wants to get to 2,000 yards. Good luck, Amari Cooper.
Hey, I mean,
Set goals for yourself. Even if he doesn't hit the unreasonable goal, he might hit a bunch of other unreasonable goals too.
yeah.
He's like, I wanted 2,000 yards, but I got 1,800.
Oh, man. Disappointment.
That blows. Yeah, no, he's probably not even going to get like 1,400 yards.
Probably not. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Tyreek Hill is expected to be suspended as early as next month. The suspension is...
Why is it taking so long?
Oh, the NFL's got to... They said they want to interview him now. Clowns.
But
the suspension is expected to be 8 games.
Yeah. Okay.
Not bad. So Tyreek Hill's suspension is actually 8 games because of the bye week, he doesn't come back till week 10. A lot of people are like, I thought he was suspended 10 games. And it's the same amount of games. That's what they're basing it off of, at least. My question is, do the Chiefs, and we got to move on, but do the Chiefs, they cut Kareem Hunt after this whole situation on a similar suspension in similar circumstances, and they're not going to cut Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, that's like... This is what it was. They're like, oh, we have so many stars. Who cares?
I could care
it's the
less.
right thing to do to cut Kareem Hunt.
For fantasy,
And then,
Tyreek Hill staying on the Chiefs is a good thing. I'm just saying...
no, I know.
Like, how does that make a guy like Kareem Hunt feel like, oh, we're going to cut you, but we're not going to cut Tyreek Hill? You're replaceable.
I think they're at the time, they're like, we can win without Kareem Hunt. It's probably best if we cut him. Like,
they couldn't, sorry.
And they're like
by the Pats.
I don't think Kareem Hunt would have mattered against the Patriots.
Yeah, probably not. You know what's funny? I keep seeing those memes. So people like retweet Patrick Mahomes doing things.
Yes.
Like playing golf or drinking or whatever, chugging
Doing
a beer,
anything.
doing anything. And they're like, what can't Mahomes do? And every Patriots fan ever comments and says, beat the Patriots. Beat Tom Brady. That's going to come back to bite us in the butt someday.
Oh, yeah. Probably
100%.
this year.
Let's move into our main segment, our commissioner segment of the Fantasy Champions podcast. What you came here to listen to. You probably saw it in the tagline and said, wow, this is an episode I need to listen to.
I'm trying to start a league. Let's go.
Let's go. So we're going to give you our favorite league rules as well as ask important questions for your league in 2019 if you didn't already do this. If you didn't know, it's the 21st century.
It is?
Yeah, 21st century, yeah. Well, ever since fantasy football was invented, you can kind of customize anything to be anything. So there's going to be those dynasty people out there. I mean, not dynasty people. There are going to be those auction draft people that are going to be like, what are you talking about? That's not the best. Auction drafts are the best.
Hey, I kind of low-key dig auction drafts, but they're not the best.
They're long and tedious and
they can be fun.
Difficult.
But...
especially when apparently I've heard this because I've never done an auction draft.
You've never done one?
No, I've done an auction draft. I've never done an auction draft the OG way without computers. I heard those get straight lit.
I've never done that either.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. I've done
the OG way.
Yeah, the OG way. I've done offline redrafts for snake leagues, and they're pretty freaking awesome.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so everyone has, I know a popular thing right now is tight end premium, 1.5 points per reception for tight ends. That's a popular thing right now. So there's a lot of different rules that you can choose. There's a lot of customizations that you can make in your league. But it really fits what you're comfortable with, what you want to do, and what makes your league the most fun. And these are questions that we've come across over our years in fantasy football. People get very heated on some of these topics.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, very, very
Especially
heated. So
competitive.
we're gonna especially competitive leagues. Yeah. So we'll give you our takes on some of these things. But let's get started with the commissioner segment. So I wanted to start off with our preferred leagues settings.
Okay.
So when you're starting a league, you say I'm starting up a league tomorrow, or I'm trying to join a league. These are the settings that I usually look for when I'm trying to either construct a league or join one. So I usually like to have that one quarterback. There are people that like to do two quarterbacks.
That's a little much for me.
I'm not sure. Like I think I've been in 1-2 QB league, and I find them extremely annoying because if you have think about this. If you
Are you
have,
saying I could get Mahomes and Jimmy Garoppolo on one team?
There are leagues out there that have 15 teams, right? 15, 16 teams in the league, right?
Yeah.
And then they have two quarterbacks. So that means every single quarterback in the league is taken up. And then if some teams own three quarterbacks, then you have to pull some guy off the waiver wire who's not even starting.
Dude, imagine having
that. That's insane.
Imagine having Colt McCoy last year as your fantasy quarterback.
Seriously. It's chaos. I like to stick with one quarterback. I think it makes it more interesting. Two running backs usually. That's generally the direction that I go. Some leagues do 3 wide receivers. Some leagues do 3 running backs. Like I said,
that's a little more rare though, I think.
Yeah,
than
a lot more rare. I mean, like I said, it's all customizable. So two running backs, 2 wide receivers, and then you got 1 tight end. Stick with some leagues have 2 tight ends too.
That one is very hard.
What do you want to do? Have like tight ends who score 2 points apiece?
You honestly
your
be
second
happy
tight end.
if your tight end 2 gets like 2 points.
So it is also a popular thing to make your tight end position a second flex spot that allows tight ends. That has been discussed in our league, but I think it makes the tight end position completely irrelevant as a whole,
right?
Unless you have like,
because at that point you're
friggin'
Kelsey, right?
Yeah, Travis Kelsey,
or maybe Ertz or Kittle, but they'd just be like middle end wide receivers,
right? So then we have 1 flex spot, 6 bench spots. Sometimes I like 7. Really, depends. It depends on the depth of the season.
7 is if you're a stacked team,
yeah,
trying to make a trade with a crappy team.
That's true.
And you just have so many
that 7th
average players, and you're like, I don't want to cut any of them.
Then defense and kicker. There has been a lot of discussion over the last few years if defenses and kickers should even be in fantasy football.
I like them in fantasy football just for the classic. What is the word I'm looking for here?
Like the classic league, like the original type of thing.
It gives me
the OG feeling.
Yes, exactly. I don't know how to put that into words because it just touches my heart so much.
It is really annoying. I lost to a kicker in a playoff game this year, so I'm bitter. But
didn't he score like 20 points?
Yeah, it was Kaimi Fairbarn. So flip me. Half point PPR is usually the preferred stat choice as far as receptions are concerned.
It used to be standard for us for a while. I've always liked standard. I do like PPR though. Like most people are in a PPR league. They usually don't do half PPR. So if you want to go PPR, I think that's perfectly fine too. Honestly, standard half PPR or PPR, it really just is a preference on this one. Yeah,
right. 10. Oh my.
Wow, you almost just destroyed your book.
Yeah, 10 or 12 teams usually works out. It's a little bit harder on a 12-team league because the teams are not as
right. I personally like 10.
Yeah,
but I don't mind 12 because in a 10-team league you do have more stacked teams.
Right.
I think overall it's actually, believe it or not, easier to trade with other teams.
Right.
In a 10-team league you get more teams. You actually get less teams in the playoffs generally. Yeah. Which I like. Or if you got more teams in the playoffs, it's better matchups. So.
Right.
But I mean, that one again is not really. You can go either way with those ones.
Complain about that. Right. It is harder to draft.
It is harder to draft in 12-team leagues.
So we obviously do redraft. There's a podcast, what we're about. We don't talk about auction all that much. And then snake draft. Obviously redraft snake. So we go
Well, that was a perfect.
You like that?
We obviously draft Snake.
Just drew an S in the air. No one can see me doing that. Just add the sound effects in later. That is pretty basic. For fantasy football. We also drink
Starbucks.
Yeah, we also drink Starbucks. But it's 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, a flex, 6 bench spots, defense, kicker, half-point PPR, 10 or 12 teams, redraft, and snake. So, that's our preferred league settings, generally speaking, when I try to find a league. Now, the funny thing is I've been trying to join a dynasty league and try to fix an orphan league. No, there's a ton of options out there. They all do these friggin'... It's the tight end premiums, the 2 quarterbacks, the super flexes, and I'm like... Let's I'm okay with the super flex, but like, can we not with everything else? So
I'm actually kind of.
I've toyed with the tight end premium thing, but what's the point of
out of everything we talked about that we don't do? Out of all of those, I probably wouldn't mind 2 quarterbacks, but that's because I have a quarterback fetish. So
that's true. So we're gonna move into a couple of questions that are very. More specifically in today's day and age, more discussed and talked about. And so let's start off with the first one. Should you switch your league to Dynasty? And this is an interesting question because Dynasty has been around for a while, but redraft has dominated fantasy football and fantasy in general for a long time.
Right.
In the last couple years, like in the past, I think it was just redraft and keeper leagues, and then in the last couple of years, Dynasty has just risen up into like this spotlight that everyone wants to do it.
Personally, I've always thought Dynasty was really cool, and I think keeping your own team and you're more like a GM,
right?
Which is what a lot of people want to do. So I do like Dynasty. I do think it's really cool. I personally like redrafts, though, just because...
We are a redraft podcast.
Right. That is true. What did you think I'd say? I love to draft. It's one of my favorite parts. It's one of our favorite parts. You get together with your friends. You have a big party.
Yeah.
You draft. And if it stinks, you do it all again next year.
The interesting thing about Dynasty is... I mean, I guess it's obviously a lot harder than... There's difficulties in both, but you still draft.
I think overall it would be harder.
You still draft in dynasty leagues. You just do a 4 to 6 round rookie draft.
It's a rookie draft.
You have to actually scout rookies and project when they're going to succeed and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Like I said, you're like a GM. You're playing GM.
I think what you maybe not. If you're in the middle of a redraft league that you already have, I would suggest not switching that league over to a dynasty league unless you are resetting the league altogether. I agree with that. What a lot of people are like, I want to switch my league to Dynasty. Should I just keep the team that I have right now? And when you originally drafted, you drafted with the mindset of 1 year.
Right, and I'm drafting again next year.
Right, and so if you keep all your players, you're not thinking about, say you drafted Todd Gurley first overall last year, and then you switch your league to Dynasty. Now you're screwed because Todd Gurley in 3 years is going to be like fantasy dust. And you're going to sit here with this guy that you only got for 2 years. So you obviously draft entirely different in dynasty startups than you would in, obviously a redraft league. A lot the preferred choice in redraft is usually to go running backs early and then get your wide receivers later because there's so much depth at wide receiver. In dynasty leagues, because wide receivers last longer, you usually draft wide receivers earlier and then get your running backs later. And that's usually the strategy that people use in a dynasty startup league, it's completely opposite, but you see guys, top running backs going, young top running backs going in the 3rd or 4th round in most dynasty startup drafts. So, I think it's an interesting discussion. Now, I wouldn't switch your league over. I would just either start another league for Dynasty or join another Dynasty league to get into that. Because it is, if you've never done Dynasty before, it's crazy. It's literally, it's fun. It's a different aspect to what you would actually do. So I like my league in redraft because I like to do redraft. Like I like to draft every year to reset my team, to rebuild my team. Dynasty is basically being a GM. It's setting yourself in Madden in freaking franchise
You're
mode.
literally playing Madden 19 or Madden 20.
There are dynasty leagues out there now. I don't recommend joining one of these because it's psycho, but there is a setting. There's all kinds of stuff you can do, but there's dynasty leagues out there that are 32 teams.
Holy moly!
You do IDP, which is individual defensive player. You have all of the offensive positions. It's like basically
including a line,
not offensive line.
Okay,
I
was gonna say,
linemen, but
how in the world
you have
fantasy offensive line?
Your roster consists, I think, of like 35 to 40 players, and you literally do it exactly like a regular team. And so you have to build it. You have to score points. It's crazy.
That is
really
insane.
deep. So you can go crazy with Dynasty. It literally opens up all the avenues that it's just a crazy thing. But I wouldn't switch. I'd stick with it.
Yeah. Again, like you said, especially if you drafted a league in a redraft league and you want to switch that league to Dynasty, as you said, you had the mindset when you drafted the redraft that you're doing this for 1 year. So I would not do that. But if you want to start your own Dynasty league, go right ahead because it's fun.
On the note of Dynasty and keepers, keepers leagues are actually really interesting because I haven't been in a lot of them. So I just recently have learned actually a ton about keeper leagues. I'll be frank. Because I had before this year, keeper leagues were not even something that I even considered doing. But keeper leagues are kind of interesting because I always thought in the past that keepers, like if you're thinking about doing keepers in your league, this is something that you should really note. But for me, keepers, I thought you just kept a player and then you just drafted based on that. So if I thought it was if I had Melvin Gordon, I'm like, okay, and he was my best player, I'm like, okay, I'm keeping Melvin Gordon. You basically lose. So basically what happens is if you're in a keeper league and you keep one player or two players, you lose that respective pick that you used on them the previous year. So if you drafted Christian McCaffrey in the third round the previous year,
you would lose your third round.
You would lose a third round pick if you decided
too bad.
Yeah. But. So like for example, for you keep one player, you'd probably keep Christian McCaffrey, right?
I'd probably keep Mahomes because I took him.
What a waste.
I took him in the 11th round.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'd still have all my picks.
But you forfeit that pick, and then you move forward with the team that you have. So I actually thought that was kind of interesting because a lot of people just think you just draft without those other players in there.
Thought that's how it was too, but I had no idea.
So it is rather interesting, but that'll answer the question for should you switch to Dynasty. The second question, what waiver system do you like? If there is a waiver system at all. This is a hotly contested topic. Just assume we're in waiver. We move past Dynasty. We're in redraft leagues. A lot of people, and I guess this could apply to Dynasty leagues as well, but there's many different forms of a waiver system that people can use. They either use just straight waivers, which is, the
most simple one.
Which you have, a waiver, basically waiver priority. So the worst team, the worst team gets the best players available.
They're picking in the field essentially.
Right, and then that it resets. So Wednesday happens, and you get all the players, and that waiver period ends, and then it goes to the next one, and it flips over. So now the top gets the best players, and the bottom gets the best player. It goes from top to bottom. So waiver priority it's a crazy system. It's taken years for me to work that whole thing out because it's absolute crazy. And then you can choose to do free agent, which is
first come, first serve.
Yeah, first come, first serve at any time, even on Sunday after things have started. So you can just go grab guys. You can set a lock on that too, but that's getting too far into it. So there's that system. There's also waiver budget, which is the most popular thing to do right now. Sleeper has made it. I thought was really cool. Sleeper made it a possibility to trade waiver budget, which is
That's going so in depth with it.
I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Cash considerations, my dude. You'll get some cash considerations. But anyway, so you can use waiver budget. So it works the same way as a waiver priority, but you just bid. So if there's a player on the waiver wire and I bid $10 and Rick bids $10 and our budget's $100, then whoever has the highest waiver priority would get the player. Most of the time, if you bid the right way, you don't really run into that problem where two guys bid the same amount. But so it still works with the waiver, but it gives you a little bit more control in terms of what you're doing. So which one do you prefer?
So we've always played on just regular waivers.
Right.
I kind of am very intrigued by waiver budget.
Right.
I think that's kind of the way I'd personally want to go for this year. And if I was starting a league right now, that's what I would want to do. Yep. Just because it is kind of like regular waivers, but then the budget part of it adds another aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't do free agents because you always got Danny from accountant who is on his phone 24/7, right? And once Nick Chubb gets traded to the Browns, he gets his Twitter alert from Adam Schefter, and boom, he picks him up. And everybody else in the league, he's just sitting there wait, what?
Yeah.
So there's always like two guys in the league that just like 2 or 3 guys that just like are on their phone at all times.
Yeah, and we both got screwed with the regular waiver priority.
Yeah, we did. So that's
it's so it honestly as a player in fantasy football, it is so annoying to have a crappy team that's ahead of you get a guy that you were looking at. Like it's. I
mean, it makes sense.
It makes sense. It's just really annoying because it's a guy that you wanted to get. And it's like you have no control over, like, if you want to spend an obscene, say your waiver budget's $200 and you want to spend an obscene amount of money to get him like $150, then go for it. But like it kind of restricts, like waiver priority restricts it literally. If you suck and you're lucky enough to suck, then you get the guy.
Right.
And it's like you kind of have to luck out every single Wednesday, hold your breath. Like I literally wake up on Wednesday morning and pick up my phone immediately during the season trying to figure out what guys I got. Yeah. And it's like it's just such a pain in the butt.
It is.
So I would prefer waiver budget too, just because and they call it FOB, by the way.
FOB.
Yeah. But I would prefer a waiver budget system because it just allows you more control over what guys you're going to get. You know, you can say, okay, I'm gonna bid $25 on this guy, and if you don't end up getting him, then it was it was either some guy was stupid enough to overpay, or you just didn't offer enough money to get him. So that would be it's a much wiser way of doing things. And then obviously, if you run out of waiver budget, it adds another element of strategy where you can't blunder and spend all of it all at once, which people would do, especially in our league.
Yeah.
Somebody will be ridiculous.
Oh yeah, big time.
Somebody will be ridiculous.
They're gonna spend all 200 of your waiver dollars on one guy.
It's true. I always thought it was. I definitely thought it was interesting. Sleeper I don't know if other platforms had this ability. I know there's many platforms out there, but Sleeper just made it a possibility to do the waiver, like I said earlier, the budget trading. So that actually, to me, would add a lot more to the game.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, if you're offering a trade, you don't just offer your players, you offer like some waiver budget. So say some guy's low on waiver budget and he can't pick up guys, and you want a specific player, and you're offering a little, you're offering just enough, but then it's not enough for the guy, and you throw $50 in there and you call it a day. So it's like, that's kind of like, that would be an interesting little situation.
Waiver budgets though, or like a portion of your waiver budget.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
It is very cool. Sleeper is an awesome platform, by the way. We are not sponsored by Sleeper.
This podcast is sponsored by no one.
No one. Let's move on to our third question. Should you be in a standard, half PPR, or full PPR league? I'll start if you want me to.
Please do.
Okay.
So I'm very interested to hear what you're going to say.
We have been in a standard league for quite some time in our personal competitive league. And I've been in full PPR in years past. I've been in half PPR. I've been in every single format. Obviously, if we did this podcast and I didn't do every single format, then it would be rather interesting to see me talk about most of this stuff. But
yes.
So half PPR has come onto the scene more recently as a popular version of PPR.
It's a compromise.
It's a compromise. I prefer PPR, and I think your league should be in PPR, and here's why.
Ooh. I don't think you'd say this.
Full PPR and standard leagues give power to the running backs. Full PPR gives power to the wide receivers. You draft entirely differently than you would in either league. So like in a standard league, there's 8 running backs, 7 running backs that go in the first round. In a full PPR, you get like 5-6 wide receivers in the first round.
Yeah, it's pretty even.
So it's like it gets way more even, and you have to also start thinking about guys like running backs who catch the ball become way more valuable. Like a Christian McCaffrey becomes insane. Dog. He becomes like absolutely insane. And so I think PPR was an attempt. Full PPR was an attempt to even out the scoring between running backs and wide receivers. The problem is that it did the opposite. It didn't even anything out. It just made wide receivers a lot more powerful of a position than running backs. Half PPR basically makes the scoring for either position more equal. So running backs are still important. Wide receivers are still important, but one is not more important than the other. That's why I like half PPR, because it kind of gives...
so because you said PPR when you started talking.
I did. I said full PPR makes wide receivers more powerful. Standard makes running backs more powerful. Half PPR makes them equal.
But you said that if you had to choose one, you should choose PPR.
I said half PPR.
I'm pretty sure you said PPR.
All right. Well, you should choose half PPR. Good God.
I was just about to make my argument against you.
Yeah, there you go.
Like,
now you're ruined.
Because you were talking about like PPR and why. It's like with the receivers and stuff, and I was like, well, that's why. Personally, I think you should do half PPR because now it's a little more even. Because you still get, as you said, the advantages for receivers and advantages for running backs. I know we've always done standard leagues. And it is kind of like in deep down somewhere where I'm like, I still kind of like standard leads.
Yeah, but it's
even
dying.
Though they're dying. Yeah, it is dying. Just like my hairline.
I think. Okay, LeBron. I think in a couple of years, half PPR will be the new standard. That would be my guess.
I agree with that.
I think full PPR, like I said, I think it was an attempt at trying to even things out, and it didn't really do its job. So when I heard half PPR, I had a couple of people in our league pushing for full PPR in our league to move it from standard. So when I heard about half PPR over the last few years, I was like, we definitely need to switch the league to half PPR because it's like way better of a system than full PPR or standard is. And it gives receptions. Like there are times where you're sitting there going for a wide receiver, they get like, a slot receiver will get like 50 yards in a game and score no touchdowns, but have like 10 receptions, something ridiculous. And you have like a crappy game for a wide receiver, and those receptions don't count. But to give a full point for every reception, it just weights it too much. So half point PPR works out in the long run.
That's our favorites, but if PPR is your preference, it's not like
it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
I think any one of those 3 leagues are good.
Yeah. And it depends on what you're trying, what you want to do. Right.
Yeah.
So because each one comes with its own strategy. So whichever one you're in, you just use your come up with a perfect strategy to make it happen, and then win your league.
Wow.
Simple as that.
Pro tips with Morgan.
This is an interesting little topic or series of discussions, I guess.
Okay.
It's not really a full-on question, but we want to talk about trade deadlines and vetoes.
Oh boy.
This is the next one will be a relatively easy one that we'll be able to blow past and then to show on, but this one's an interesting one because a lot of people, we have toyed with trade deadlines and vetoes quite a bit.
Yes.
There was a falling out a few years ago in our personal league. Yes. Just to give you a little bit of an anecdotal story before we start talking about veto. Yeah, car crashes and fistfights.
Cities burning down.
Rick made a trade Don't even remember what it was. Wasn't it?
I got AJ Green. I don't know who I traded.
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago. You traded Phillip Rivers and then
that was
another guy.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, he traded for a guy. It was 2 sequences. One guy traded a player.
Right.
And
so
it was like a garbage trade. And so, there's always one guy. The way we worked it out was that we could vote on, usually in standard leagues to veto, everyone in the league can vote yes or no on whether or not they want the trade.
And if the league majority says yes,
then you make it a thing.
Right.
So in our league, we made it so that somebody would have to, 2 people would have to bring it up and agree to bring it to a vote, that type of thing. Sounds like freaking Congress, but that's what we would do. And then if 2 people came forward, then we would take a vote. And when we took a vote, if it was majority, then obviously the trade would be canceled. So this happened. There was always one guy in our league that would be like, I called for a vote, and then some idiot would say, yeah, me too. And then you call for a vote, and when it was a bad trade, it would get canceled. So twice it happened in our league. I don't know if it happened to you twice. I think it happened to you once, and then it happened to another guy in our league once. And it absolutely.
Okay, so here's
it spiraled our league.
If this happens, so this didn't happen to you, but so that's kind of why I think you've never been against it, the league veto. When it happens to you, it stinks, because here you're in a perfect position. You just made a big time trade.
You're feeling good.
Last year, what if they vetoed any one of your trades?
Oh, I'd be so mad.
Yeah, especially a good one.
Yeah,
right. One that you knew you won. And the rest of the league vetoes it.
I love
that
a good
stinks.
fleece.
And you're like, well, shouldn't you not allow fleeces and stuff? Well, logically, yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it? Yeah. But here's the problem with that. If a good team in your league makes a good trade and both parties agree to it, trade should be allowed. And just because the other team's getting better, everyone else in the league is going to see that. They're going to be like, wow, this guy's getting better. We can't allow this. Veto.
Veto. Yeah.
And everybody's going to veto everything because they want to win.
I think the goal of the veto is to make it more fair, I guess. If there's something egregious, then it's not like some team just decided they didn't want to play anymore.
Which is why I think it should be up to the commissioner.
Yeah, right. All the power to me. So, but anyway, so the veto, the league vote is just a bunch of people. But then, obviously you have a commissioner gets a trade and he's competitive and he gets better and vetoes it. So I think the thing is with the league veto is you to me, I liked having it as a vote, as always an option in the back in your back pocket to kind of take it away. I think the only time a veto should happen is if one team just gets completely they're like, I decide I don't want to play this year, and then they trade their whole team.
Well, I think
to
that's
some
different.
Other team. Yeah,
that's
So this is where the line gets drawn. What is what we like to call collusion, and what is just a bad trade for one team making a stupid, idiotic thing. And that's where the commissioner comes in. He comes in, he talks to both sides, he says what happened, and then if it's obvious that it's collusion, then you veto the trade, you send it back, and then figure out what the repercussions are later. It sounds like we're really important, but it's not. It's just fantasy football, and as much as we want to be competitive and we want to win, and that's what it's about. It's also about having fun, and for some people in competitive natured leagues, they get real serious about it because they're giving $300 to buy in. But regardless, if you're in a family league or a friends league, and you're sitting here yelling at each other about a stupid veto, it really doesn't matter. It's you're in this to have fun. Don't sit here and get pissed off about all kinds of stuff happening. Our league literally almost collapsed because of a stupid veto, and that's how dumb it got.
That was the second one
because people got so angry. So I think for me, leave it up to the commissioner to figure out, obviously if there's collusion. Basically make it so that there never has to be a veto unless it's fully necessary.
Right.
Don't make it votable. And if it becomes an issue, then obviously you can figure that out. But I think a lot of teams there's a lot of people who like the veto. Like back in the day, I liked the veto. I was like, let's go. I can stop Rick from making trades. But now it's just like it for the sake of the league and the fact that after you guys got rid of the veto on me in votes, I started dominating on trades. So
yeah, you would not be able to do that. You wouldn't even be able to make half the trades you made last year if the veto was still a thing.
Right. So it becomes more of like a vengeful thing to stop other teams from succeeding, and that's what you want to avoid. So just make it so that if somebody obviously is running 2 accounts in your league for some reason, that's obvious collusion right there. But do you have any other thoughts on the veto before we go to the other one?
I just personally hate it, but again, I think if you want to put it in your league,
right,
and you trust the guys in your league, then yeah, go for it. Don't let listening to us stop you. Yeah. However, take into consideration what has happened to me personally.
The anecdotal story. Let's talk about the second one, which is trade deadlines. This is an interesting one. So normally your trade deadline is going to be 3 to 4 weeks before your season ends.
Right.
That's generally what people do. Some people have played around with no deadlines whatsoever, which means you can trade the whole time. And then there's, other things that you can do. So obviously a lot of this stuff is, not settings in your league. Like if you do NFL.com, right? NFL.com only allows you to do 2 trade deadline dates, and that's it. So if you want to do any other trade deadline date, you have to set that date, tell your league that you can't trade after that date, set the time it's supposed to happen, and then, which is what we do.
Yes.
Set the time it's supposed to happen, and then if anybody tries to make trades after that, they just all get vetoed or something like that.
Right.
So that's kind of the thing with trade deadlines. But for me, I don't know. We did a trade deadline last year. We chose to do our trade deadline the week.
It was like the last week of the season.
Yeah, the final week of the season, the final week of the fantasy regular season, right before the playoffs started. So when the playoffs started, we weren't able to trade anymore. It made it really interesting because we were making trades all the way up until the playoffs, and it was fun. But there were some people in our league who were obviously out of it, which I don't agree with this. If you're in a fantasy football league, especially with your friends, there shouldn't be a point where you give up. You should try to do everything you can to spoil somebody else's success. Somebody's trying to make the playoffs, and you beat them and you kick them out of the postseason. You clearly are never going to make it, but you get somebody else out. Like you should have fun with it. Still play the game. I know some people get really, really angry when other teams in the league who are not in the playoffs continue to play, pick up guys off the waiver wire and do that. And you know what? I respect that. Like, do that. Make it harder for the other teams that are in the playoffs.
It's better than giving up and trading away your guys to a different team. And
So, but there are sometimes there's just that one guy that's like, I'm not in the playoffs anymore. I'm just going to give up and get. There's always going to be 2 or 3 teams that are just out of it right at the end. Yeah. Like 4 weeks before the end of the season. So some guys just don't care, and they're like, oh, yeah, I'll do that trade. So the problem with the trade deadline being that late is that the teams that know they're out are going to try to...
They can just dump their guys.
Yeah, just dump their guys to a team that's either dominating...
Team that's already stacked, right, yeah.
Something like that. So I would say 3 weeks before the season ends, like the latest possible date that you can do it, 2 to 3 weeks before the season ends, is probably the best time to set your trade deadline.
Yeah, I've always said 3 weeks.
Yeah. Just because it's like, it makes it a little bit like, there's probably going to be one team that's out of it by then, but hopefully they're not dumping their team. And if they suck that bad that they're out, like, do you really want anybody on their team anyway?
Right. Exactly.
So I think that's the deadline you should go with. But like I said, it all depends on what you want to do. I toyed with the idea or the concept of making it impossible. I don't know if this is like a setting on any website, and if Flea Flicker, Sleeper, MyFantasy.com, or any of you are listening, ESPN, Yahoo.
ESPN is definitely listening.
Yeah. And you want to make this change, then feel free. But making it so that the trade deadline is the week prior or the week of the final week of your fantasy regular season, which is what we did last year, but make it so that if you are out of playoff contention, you can't trade anymore. So if you can't make the playoffs, that's it. You're done. You can't make trades. You go into your fantasy off season. You can't make trades anymore. But the teams that are still active in the postseason can discuss talk about things all the way up until the postseason starts, and then it's cut off.
Yeah.
So that was something that I toyed with a little bit to see if it would be something
Nobody
of interest
bought in, though.
in our league. Yeah, no one bought into it. But I thought that would be an interesting little thing to throw in there. It's not too hard to do. Obviously, it's easy to figure out who gets eliminated.
Right. No, I mean, I think that could be interesting, too. It is fun, though. Like, I know last year, with our deadline being essentially the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, my team changed completely in the last week and a half.
Yeah.
Mine
did too. I got Travis Kelce at the deadline.
Yeah, and then you give him to me.
Yeah.
I got I think I got Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
I traded. You hated the trade. I got Chris Carson and Michael Thomas.
Yep.
For Aaron Jones and Stephon Diggs, and you're like, dude, you lost that trade.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Chris Carson went off. So.
Yeah. Let's move into our last one to end the season. You're bringing up bad memories to end the episode. Good
memories, dude.
Episode, not the season.
Beautiful memories.
When should your league draft? We've been in all over the month of August. The first week of the season, the second week of the preseason.
We've been in July.
Yeah, so we went. Yeah, we got super lit one year. In July.
We got way too lit that year.
It was like, let's go.
It was mid-July, too. It wasn't even late July.
Wow. That was the year I drafted Jordy Nelson. He tore his ACL in the preseason.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was not. I was like...
You were like, never again.
Yeah, no, it was like that year everyone was making fun of me because I drafted all running backs all the time. So I was like, you know what? First round, I'm going wide receiver. Drafted Jordy Nelson in the first round. I was like, I'm feeling good about this. I'm feeling real good about this. And then he tears his ACL, and I'm like, you guys, seriously? You forced me to draft a wide receiver that got hurt. Because of that, we now draft after the preseason.
Yes.
If you're in a league, don't draft too early. That's kind of my...
I know you want to.
I know you want to. That's what mock drafts are for, and joining ridiculous ESPN leagues
yes.
are for. Just mock draft your brains out until you get all the way to the end of, preseason.
It does stink when you draft a guy in the first, second, or third round.
Yeah.
And the guy just tears his ACL.
No, it's true.
I mean, it actually happened to me last year. Jarrett McKinnon, third round pick, tore his ACL.
Yep.
I think that was in a practice though, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. So that's a little different, but still.
The later you can draft, the better.
Yeah.
It would be. I've actually thought about this. It'd be really interesting to draft the night before the NFL season starts. Right before it starts, because then it just...
That is interesting.
It jumps right into it, so you don't wait any. But
I don't think anybody wants to wait.
Usually it's the Saturday and for us, it's usually the Saturday or Sunday before the season starts. So we get 4 or 5 days to set our lineups, figure things out, and then go from there.
Right.
So for me, I think you should draft... As long as it's after the last preseason game, you should be good.
Yeah, and even if you do the third, because most of the time a lot of guys don't play the fourth preseason game.
I'm in another league where we're drafting right after the third week of the preseason, so it doesn't really... I mean, it's not... Because the guys they're starting in week 4 are third string backups that you're not going to draft. So you could reasonably get away with that, but then you're waiting 2 whole weeks before the season starts, and I don't know if I can handle sitting there for 2 weeks staring at my roster.
We all know everybody does that. After the draft, and if the NFL season doesn't start for a few weeks, you just stare at your roster.
It's true. That'll do it for our commissioner episode. Long, boring, and informative.
Very informative. Yeah.
Be sure to listen on Thursday. We're going to give you our top 10 draft tips for 2019.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then after that, it gets really spicy as we move into a series of shows about players who you may have forgotten about in 2018. So be sure to listen and be on the lookout for that. And then soon after that is our second mock draft. So keep listening, people. Keep listening. Got any closing thoughts for us, boss?
Oh, dude, we forgot one very important thing.
What's that, boss?
You need a buy-ins of at least $10,000 to make the league interesting.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Take it from us.
Family leagues too. Everyone, take it from us.
Yeah, take it from us, and take the money from your grandma.
There's about 5 leagues that just $10,000 right now. Yeah, that'd be ridiculous.
Imagine doing that and losing.
That would be awful. Talk to you Thursday, Fantasy Champs.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.